All right, it's 6 o'clock straight up. First of all, welcome and thanks for joining us to the status update on the Washington Boulevard slide project. This, I think, will only take us about 15-20 minutes to go through our presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A. But let's go ahead and get some housekeeping items done first. So first of all, this meeting is being recorded, and then we will post this on our project webpage. So if you want to view it later, or if you didn't get a chance to attend, you could do that. So during the presentation right now, all you attendees are on mute, and that's to make sure that we have good audio quality. And then the next slide will go through about question and answer session. You saw in the flyer that IRIC sent out that there's a Title VI and ADA, so if there's a need for interpretation or translation, the information is there to contact KITSAP1, and that would also apply to the recording that we're doing. If you need help with that, just let us know. So for the questions and comments section, like I said, that'll be at the end of our presentation. There's if you're the internet user, there are two ways that you could do that. You could click the raise hand feature, and that will signal us that you would like to be brought in. That'll activate your mic, and then you could ask your question at the appropriate time. The other way to do it is to actually type a question into the Q&A section. If you're a call-in user, you just dial *9, and that will signal us that you'd like to make a comment, and that'll give us the last four of your number, and then we'll announce, hey, number 1, 2, 3, 4, you're up. Please state your name and your first name and begin speaking. I will go through this again at the end of the presentation, just to review it. So the agenda for this evening, we'll introduce the team. We'll go through the project objectives. We'll review the decisions that we have made to date. The biggest thing will be giving you an update on where we're at on the design and the schedule. We'll also talk briefly about what to expect during the construction, and then have the Q&A section. So first of all, the project team. I'm Tim Beachy with the county. I'm the project manager. And Andy and Phil, could you introduce yourselves, please?
Sure, thanks, Tim. I'm Andy Holmson. I'm with Aspect Consulting, geotechnical engineer, and in this case, the project manager for the consultant team, doing the design of the horizontal drain system. That's me. Go ahead, Phil.
You have your mic muted.
There we go. How's that?
Good.
Phil Struck with Struck Environmental, and I'm doing the environmental documentation and permitting for the consultant team.
So David Dinkoon, he's the consultant leading the civil part of the design. He's not attending this evening. I'd also like to call out Molly Foster. She didn't have to say anything right now, but she's doing all of our property acquisition. That's a huge part of this project, and she's definitely part of the project team that needs to be acknowledged. On your screen there, you see Iric O'Neill. So Iric, he is our outreach coordinator for roads department, and so he's with the ones getting the flyers set up, sending them all out, setting up the Zoom meeting, and he's the host for this. So he'll be bringing you in and out if you have questions. And he's also doing a lot of the items that Doug Bear used to do. We also have some additional county employees that are on the line or just as attendees. And so Andy Nelson, our director, is joining us. Tina Nelson, she's the roads engineering program manager. She's my boss. Jacques Dean, he's our road supervisor. And Ron Moore and Joe Sabisky, they're both from the North Road Shop and doing the maintenance on the project. And Commissioner Gelder, he emailed me last night, and he's involved in a virtual conference, and he's hoping to join us, but if he can, it'll be late. But he was planning to, but looks like he's booked, double booked. And I believe that Joe Rattan, our county engineer, was also planning to join us. So let's just get right into this. The objectives of the project, by the way, for those of you who joined us last year in person at the open house, this presentation is much the same. So this will look very familiar. The objective provide a functional roadway for access to the parcel served by the roadway. Let me minimize these so I can actually read this. Assurance to residents of an all-weather, stable, and predictable access, meeting the needs of emergency responders and reasonable deliveries, and at a cost justifiable for a local access road. A review of the decisions that we've made to date. We're going to implement the full slope dewatering, which is to install horizontal drains near the bottom of the slope to lower the groundwater table. We're maintaining the current roadway geometry. We've confirmed the decision to purchase the adjacent properties so we can construct this. And we are doing the construction in the summer of 2021. So here's what we're here for. What are the updates? So I think back in last December, I probably told the group that the two big things are property acquisition and permitting. So the good news is that we haven't come up under any other hurdles or two hurdles that have been other than permitting or property acquisition. The bad news is that they are as challenging as what we thought they might be, but no more than what we thought they might be. So we purchased 4 of the 5 properties Molly has. One of those properties was the home that has since been demoed. We have submitted all of our applications for the permits. We've developed the 90% plans. We intend to finalize those plans this December. And we just last week received our notice of application. That's for our permits. So that's, we won't get into those details unless you ask, but that's good news. That's telling us kind of where we're at in the system. So permitting and property acquisition, they continue to be the critical path. So construction, so it's summer 2021. What can you expect? So there's 2 main portions to the project. The one is the actual roadway, and the other is the installation of the horizontal drains. So the civil side, Dave and his group, they're thinking about 20 working days for the roadway portion is sufficient. And Andy and his group with the horizontal drains are thinking about 20 working days, about 4 weeks for that work as well. So if you add them up, it's about 2 months. There's some possibility that would overlap some to shorten that, but we really don't know until we have a contractor on board and they tell us what their schedule is. So what you could expect is some intermittent disruptions to traffic flow. They will not be permitted to close the road for, permanently for like a week. It may just be, some intermittent closures. The major ones would be during maybe paving, but when we talked about this during the 90% review, it came up that our experience with the community has been extremely positive, that in the past when work needed to be done, the community stepped forward and were very easy to work with. So our job is to make sure that we're in very good communication with you, and I'll talk about that just a bit more. Our next steps. So we need to complete the permitting, and our schedule looks like March the 1st should be when we should get the last permit, and we just had that verified by the permitting agency, and also complete the property acquisition. Go to final design, should be next month, and then I'm committing us to have another meeting with you as a community to update you prior to construction. We just don't have enough detail to be able to tell you what month, because we don't have a contractor yet. But once we have one on board, and that would be next year, we want to discuss with them their schedule, what it looks like for them, and be able to communicate with you more precisely what the expectations are for their schedule. And obviously the construction would be late summer 2021. I say late summer, that's the optimal time as far as groundwater being low, but it could be done potentially a bit earlier, depending on who the contractor is and what their schedule is. So late summer is the best guess, but it could be a little bit earlier than that potentially. So in the meantime, we'll be continuing to monitor. So Aspect is collecting groundwater data. Matter of fact, Andy, could you just briefly talk about what you're collecting? And also one of the questions I have is, how's the road doing right now?
Sure. Thanks, Tim. So we did not visit the site too much in the summer, other than kind of passing through, but we did visit it in October a couple times to get our instrumentation kind of up and running and prepped and ready to go for the winter season. And the good news is that that's all done. All the instrumentation is functioning and operational, and we will be monitoring on a monthly basis, or in the case of any sort of observed movement or heavy precipitation patterns. In fact, we're going to be out there on Thursday of this week doing our November monitoring. What our data showed us from October is that there hasn't been any significant movement to the landslide since our last reading, which would have been April, so April of 2020. So things are stable out there, relatively static. I know there's a lot of rain, and there has been the past couple of weeks, and we will continue to monitor that. But based on our visits in October, things look reasonably good, and we intend to continue monitoring through the winter here. Does that answer your question, Tim?
It did. The county will continue to monitor it with our survey crew to see if there's any movement, and that's done certainly during the wet season, and we've also done it year-round the last year as well. And our county maintenance staff, I've spoken with them, and they go out pretty much weekly during the rainy season to monitor the roadway. Our maintenance crews will continue to maintain the existing road, and which brings up who do you contact for maintenance? You know, sometimes something happens where a pothole develops sooner than what we thought or whatever. The easiest and simplest way is to simply call Kitsap 1. The number's right there, 360-337-5777. It's on the county's website as well. If you leave them a message or talk to a person, they could direct that need to Jacques and his group, and Ron and Joe. So that pretty much brings the presentation to an end. So just to reiterate, for those of you who may have jumped in late, it is being recorded. So this will be posted on our project page. But if you have any questions, you could raise your hand. If you're on the internet, you could raise your hand, and IRIC will bring you in, and you would enable your microphone to ask your question, or you could type in a question in the Q&A. If you're calling in, you could dial *9, and that will alert IRIC, and he could bring you in so you could ask your question. So with that, I will open it up for any of my coworkers or the residents. And I see that Rick LeGrandeur joined us, and I've spoken with Rick. He's with the North Kitsap Fire and Rescue, and I've spoken with him, and he's pleased with how the road's been repaired on your section, and just making sure that he's in the loop for our construction.
Tim, we have a question here from David. It's a typed question into the Q&A dialog box. His question is, does lowering the water table affect well water for properties down the road?
Ooh, that's a perfect question for Andy.
Yeah, it's a good one, especially if you know, you're maybe new to the area or new to the project. It's definitely one that, as a property owner, I would be asking as well. The short answer is no. The water table we will be dewatering is relatively shallow and specific to the landslide area. So there are kind of individual drainages as you go down Washington Boulevard, and this is dewatering the drainage that is home to the landslide. groundwater depths in there are between 25 and 40 feet below the ground surface. That's the water we're looking to kind of drain out. It is kind of hydraulically separated from the properties further north along the road just by the subsurface conditions. There's a clay layer there that separates things and topography, and most wells are screened a little deeper than that. So short answer is no, the dewatering of the landslide will not impact local or adjacent wells.
Great, thank you. We've got a question from Louisa Turner. Louisa, I'm going to turn your microphone on so that you can verbally ask your question. And
Ready?
yes, please go ahead.
First of all, thank you guys so much for all this communication. It's really helpful. I am one of the property owners north of where this construction is going to happen, and I have two questions. One is, how will you communicate with the residents along this road about when the closures will happen and for how long? And secondly, will the road be passable by foot during those times?
That's a perfect question and a great question. So I talked to Iric earlier this evening, and I guess the question I would have, well, first of all, we are committed to continue to communicate, but I guess the question I would have for the community is how we're currently doing it. Is that getting everybody? If we do it via email and our web page, is that enough? Or is there another way that we should be going about keeping you up to date? And then more specifically, that's what our next meeting of the next summer that we want to hold, we could answer that specifically about what we expect for time of the day, when it will be passable, on what days the contractor may be doing some significant work that would delay a person. We know that we're not going to let them close the road permanently or for days on end, but there, whenever you pave or put a pipe under the road, we have one of those going in, that might be a small delay. So at the next meeting, I'll have the construction manager with us, and we go through those. But it's obviously, you need to know, and we need to know what your needs are. If there's some big event that's going on, if we're aware of that, we could work around that. So I didn't answer your question as well as I would have liked to, except to say that we know that we need to be able to answer that before construction starts.
Fine. That's fine.
Okay, good. All right. And is the way we're communicating now, do you get those messages? Is that the emails, are those good?
I'm not getting emails about it.
So how were you aware of this meeting then?
Well, I found out about it from my husband. I don't,
Okay.
Maybe he's getting the emails.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to get you and Iric and I need to get together and make sure that we have your email so that we could have you on our email list. I think
Okay.
we currently have 50 or 70 people that are on the list, but we're always needing to get more.
Sounds good. Tim, what about walking when the road is closed?
I kind of avoided that, didn't I? No, I really can't answer that. During construction, we need to be very careful about walking because of safety issues, but that would probably be on a daily basis. We will have a county inspector on site almost all the time. So he would be somebody you could interface with and actually make eye contact. And even when I go out to a project site, I need to check in with the on-site inspector to make sure that they know I'm there. If there's any activities going on that could be dangerous, so they could make sure that people are clear of that. So I suspect during much of the project, it'd be very, very passable because the horizontal drain installation is being done down closer to the shore. Now they may have some equipment up on the road, but the actual work will be down below. So during that portion, it's probably quite passable. When they're doing the road work, that's more, that'd be more dangerous to have people going through.
Great, thank you, Tim. Louisa, does that answer your questions?
Yeah, great.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we trying to go in order of the questions received. So we've got a number of Q&A questions and also a couple of hand raised. So the next one is actually not a question, but a positive comment for the road maintenance crews, which is always nice to hear. And that comes from Andrea Mojak. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you for the road maintenance this fall. The last time the crew came, they did a great job. So we appreciate that feedback very much, Andrea. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. And that goes to Joe and to Ron and Jacques and his group. I'd also add that Ron told me they are considering doing some trimming of some branches on the one side of the road to perhaps improve the ability to see further going down that slope when you're driving. So if you see that activity out there, that's what they're doing. So I see a question. Somebody kind of missed the first portion. Is kind of a small recap, and basically the recap is that we're on track for construction in the summer of 2021, and we will be having another meeting before construction next summer to give you details. And we could certainly provide email updates as we know more.
Great. Okay, we're going to go over to Christine Libby. So I'm going to enable your microphone and you should, if you unmute your microphone. Are you there? Christine, are you there?
Yes, this is her husband, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. Okay.
We hear you.
So
it's my email.
So two questions. First, a follow-up on the water table. I live up on the top of the bluff in a neighborhood directly above the slide area. And yes, we know that our wells go down to close to sea level, a little below sea level. And what will there be any impact on our wells, since they're probably near that same perched clay layer directly up the hill? And then a second question is an administrative one. We received from a community development a notice about a SEPA determination and a listing of another website about online permitting. What's involved with all that SEPA determination and the other site?
Well, I'm going to turn this over to Andy and then Phil. Those are good questions.
Yeah, okay, so the groundwater question, talking more about properties that are upslope or west of the landslide. Short answer there, again, is those wells will not be affected by the shallow kind of dewatering we're doing down within the landslide basin itself. The geology and the fact that there was a landslide and kind of disconnected our area of interest from the upland or the upslope properties. To give you an idea, to reference it to elevations, you mentioned your well being completed to at or below sea level. In terms of elevation, our dewatering will be taking place in the, plus 50 to plus 25 elevation, so 50 to 25 feet above sea level. That's the area of impact we'll be having. And again, it'll be kind of separated and specific to the landslide basin, which I'm pretty confident is hydraulically disconnected from the upland area. So no impact expected there, but certainly a good question to be asking.
Thank you.
Okay.
In response to the question about the notice of application, so that's the first of at least two notices that people that are within 300 feet of the project limits will receive. So although we're not doing any work in the water, we are working down in the shoreline buffer area, which is basically 100 feet upland of high water mark. which triggers a shoreline development permit from the Department of Community Development. And as part of that, they do a environmental review. So the notice of application is just a notice to adjacent landowners. And it also goes out to a variety of resource agencies that the project is being proposed. And it provides information on where you can find technical reports and additional data on what's being done and the potential environmental issues associated with that. So my understanding is the county is, DCD has done an initial review and determined that the project is not likely to have a significant environmental impact. And they are moving forward with the shoreline permit. And you can go online and look at, if you're familiar with the county's parcel search engine, you can click on one of the parcels that the project's covering, and there's 4 of them, I believe, and they will take you to a link where you can look at the various environmental documentation if you're interested. So probably sometime around Christmas, I would guess, you may see the public notice sign go up, you know, the big orange sign, probably be right there in the vicinity of where 4th takes off from Ohio. And that will be advertising the public hearing. And the hearing is associated with the shoreline permit. And it will be an online hearing similar to what we're doing tonight. And if you're interested, you can tune in and you can provide comments if you want, or you can provide written comments in advance if that is of interest. And then the hearing examiner issues a permit within about a month, and then that kind of completes the permitting process for the project. So that's kind of an overview. And if you've got any specific questions about the SEPA notice, I'd be glad to address those.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. And that notice of application, I mean, that was exciting news to me because we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for several months. It takes a lot of time to review these documents. So that's kind of trigger for us to know that it's moving forward. And it's just all part of the necessary process to make sure that when we're working on the shoreline, we're not doing anything detrimental, or if we are, we have a mitigation for that. So those are one of the 2 critical path items that we thought would be challenging, and it's no surprises, but just a lengthy process.
Great, thank you. We'll go to the next question, and that comes from, it's a typed question from Catherine Gamber. Will walking the pathway just south of the road be reopened after the stabilization?
One of my other coworkers may want to jump in, but that's not part of this project. So this project is not addressing that. My understanding is that it would not be reopened, but that's not part of this project.
Okay, thank you, Tim. We're going to go to Mark. He's got a question. He has his hand raised. Mark, I'm going to unmute your microphone. And
all right. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Well, first of all, Tim and the entire team, thanks so much for the transparent communication on all this throughout the whole process. Tim, you specifically did not qualify any of your comments this time regarding something you have in the past, which is funding approved or so forth. And it's really positive to hear that you've set a deadline. You said summer of 2021. Should I infer from that that we've gotten the money, this is going to happen, and barring some catastrophic condition, that we're good to go now?
It would be a big surprise to me to not have funding. You're right. Something catastrophic could blow it out. The transportation improvement plan is going before the Board of County Commissioners, I believe, next Monday, November 23rd, for approval. And if that is approved, that would be the final final push over the cliff for that funding. But it has always been planned for funding for 2021. And I appreciate my coworkers and Commissioner Gelder continuing to push for that.
Great. And then, so my second half of that question is kind of a tangent to that. Is your timeline pretty much, confirmed now? In other words, barring anything, again, catastrophic, summer 2021, they'll see the completion of this project.
That is correct.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you again. Thank you all.
You bet.
Okay, we've got another question, a written, typed in question from Chris Frattini. I may have missed this in the early portion. Is the road going to be paved?
That's a great question. I didn't really address that, but yes, the intent all along was to put it back into a paved surface. Years ago, that's what it was, and it will go back to pavement. The current geometry, the shape of it will remain pretty much exactly the same, but it will be paved.
Great. At the current moment, I don't see any other questions either. I don't see any other hands raised. Does anybody else, any of the attendees have a question they'd like to ask? If so, please raise your hand. If you're on the phone calling in, please dial *9 on your phone, and that will prompt us to be able to allow you to ask your question or comment. But at this time,
okay, I see one question that just came in.
Yep.
From Andrea. Is the 5th acquisition an issue? It's taking time. No, I don't think it's going to hold the project up, but I am very upfront with permitting and property acquisition are both wild cards that you plan your best, you work your hardest, and we always get through them, but they can be challenging. And we really can't comment specifically when during negotiations, but after they're over, it's all public.
Okay, I don't see any further questions. What I would like to do, we did get a question earlier about how does someone get added to the distribution list for our email subscriber list. And what I'd like to do is just put my email address up on the screen in case somebody would like to be added. Maybe you could jot down my email address. If you send me an email, I'll definitely add you to that subscriber list. Before we do that, we do have another question that came in. A hand raise here from Jack Cranny. Jack, I'm going to unmute your microphone, and you should be able to ask your question.
So I just got this notice. I guess it came in at 6. I was on the dial-in or listed on the list to get notice for any status on the work on Washington Boulevard. When did you actually send this invitation out?
This went out for this. Are you referring to this meeting tonight?
Yeah, tonight.
It went out. The first one went out. I can get you that date, but the first one went out about a month ago, and then we also mailed hard copies, and that went out 2 weeks ago, and then we sent another reminder email message out last Friday. So we've had three different points of communication.
Well, I apologize for being late. I'm not sure, did you address the actual geographic or physical aspects of the upgrade already?
No, we really didn't go through the details on the actual geology of it because that had been covered in previous presentations. I was just The real goal was to have the community up to date on, you know, if we're on track or not, and what's the current status of the road.
Do you know what the planned response to is? I had raised a question with the county commissioners regarding the fact that the design of the modification did not meet Washington standard for grade level. And the county had sent back an answer saying that you had addressed that in a prior meeting, but in fact, you really didn't address it in a prior meeting. You haven't identified any engineering rigor what the grade level is going to be when you're done. And it looks like from the data that your grade level is excessive, like twice the allowed grade in Washington state law.
The grade level is very steep. It's been the decision from early on that the roadway geometry is not going to be changed. But we will pave it, but the project is to stabilize the road. I did do a real brief alternative analysis to look about filling that slope in, that sag in. But the weight of that would have been so excessive that it would have undermined the ability to actually stabilize it. So, but you are correct, the existing geometry is to remain. And we've been trying to be very, very upfront about that the project is not to change the roadway geometry, but to stabilize the road.
So do you have a waiver from the state of Washington to do that?
I don't know that we need a way. We have multiple roads in the county that are steeper than 12%.
Yeah, but not twice as steep. Did my question get through?
Yeah, yes, it did. We are not redoing the roadway geometry.
Okay.
That has never been the purpose of the project, and we've been very clear and upfront about that. But it is to stabilize it.
What was the roadway geometry declination before the loss? Before the slide?
I have looked at some of the older surveys, and it appeared to be pretty much the same. That it's always been a very steep, especially on the upper slopes.
Actually, I don't know who else is dialed in on this call, but when I first purchased property out there, my question to several of the owners seemed to come back that it used to be flat. Is that?
I have never seen a survey that showed it flat, but it certainly has, I would think, has settled some in that lower area. But yeah, I appreciate your question, and I think see your letter that came in to the commissioner, and we appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, it does not look like we have any further questions. I'm going to, as I mentioned, I'm going to put my email address up on the screen. Can you all see that?
Yeah,
I can.
Great.
I'll give you folks a few minutes to, or just a few seconds to get that written down. Hey, I really appreciate everybody taking time to come out and listen to the updates. I appreciate the maintenance crews continuing to monitor, and you know the best way to get a hold of us is Kitsap1 if there is maintenance issues. And we'll keep our project site up to date. There's not a lot going on, so there's not much to update. But the big things coming up will be you'll see a sign for the public hearing probably for the permits, and then we are committed to having another community meeting to update you on the details for what can I expect during construction. And we want the contractor to give us some input on what their schedule looks like, and be realistic with what we expect from him. Well, thank you very, very much. And I think we'll call it a day.